welcome to our fourth video explaining our fourth article, which is really exciting. It's about neuroscience, hence why I've drawn a nice cartoon brain on our board. So we've got three sections as usual in our paper. The first section is mapping the brain, which I've written, and we talk through the four main lobes of the brain and then parts of the brain that correlate to happiness, or the bits that they've been looking at in happiness research. Then the second part is Elliot describing some of the key concepts, which we look at neuroplasticity and epigenetics. And then the last part is about the actual research that's gone on within happiness economics. So let's start with the frontal lobe. So this is the brain that's facing this way, so it's that way. The eyes would be here looking out and the hair would be down here. So this is the frontal lobe. And it does loads and loads of things, but to condense it into about 4 words, it basically controls all the things that make us kind of human. It's sometimes called the human brain. So things like planning, organising, reasoning, making judgments about things, and it coordinates these skills so that we can use them all in synchrony with one another and they can work together to achieve a goal. Our parietal lobe, it's kind of a mixed match of lots of different parts, but it mainly understands the world around us. For example, maths is processed here, understanding language is kept in a nice little spot here called Wernicke's area, and it works quite closely with the occipital lobe because the occipital lobe processes visual information, and then the parietal lobe helps to kind of process it and condense it and make it into something that we understand. And then finally the temporal lobe. This is where speech is also stored. This is where expressive speech is stored. It's one of my favourite parts of the brain. And it also helps with auditory processing of information, so distinguishing a door slam from a speech sound, for example. So these are the bits that I've drawn, and this is the cerebellum. It kind of looks like a mini brain attached to the back here, or a shiitake mushroom. It's kind of got that texture. And this is where we look at our coordination and our balance in here. And then finally the brainstem. This has loads of important bits and bobs in it, but it also has all the nerves going down from the brain down here into the spinal cord.
Okay, so before we get into the research related to neuroscience and well-being, we thought we'd cover off a couple of key concepts that come up in a lot of these papers. So the first of these is neuroplasticity, and this relates to the ability for the brain to create new connections in response to learning. So they call it like when a child is young, when you're learning a lot, they have quite a plastic brain, and as you get older it gets a bit less plastic, but there is still some plasticity. When you're older, it means that you can still learn things. The second key concept that we wanted to cover was epigenetics. So throughout your lifetime your DNA will stay the same, but different parts of your DNA can get what they're called like dialed up or dialed down based on the environment that you live in. So you could have two clones, one from one part of the world, another from another part of the world, and based on their environment they could end up with different epigenetics because of their surroundings and what affects them during their life. So the reason that those two key concepts are important for happiness economics is that it shows that your actions during your lifetime can affect your mind and your body. So this is essentially what neuroscience studies that are focusing on well-being are trying to get at. So in our paper we picked out 4 main areas based on studies that have brought out really good results and things that we found interesting too. So there's one study where we talk about connection between people that shows where researchers have made their own video game to try and test whether empathy training can lead to changes in the brain that can be measured. So we split this part of the paper into 4 sections. We talk about resilience, so that's your ability to respond to negative or positive outcomes. Attentiveness, so there's a study about people's minds wandering and how that affects a person's happiness, and you can measure that through brain activity. So there's the connection study that comes from the video game, and the last one is about purpose and meaning in life and how they can be measured through neuroscience. So these studies, they're all a bit left field, they're a bit different. It's hard to see without reading the papers how they can relate, how these happiness concepts can relate to neuroscience and how can be measured, but they've been done so in a really good way. We've summarised them in the paper, so go and have a read. We think this one's really good.